Well, Steve, man, we gotta address the Ellefson in the room and talk a little bit about the sick, the dying, and the dead.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys are cool, so I mean, this isn't going to be a gotcha kind of thing, man. But you know, did you have any trepidation kind of going into that when David gets the boot from Megadeth, but they've got to record an album? You know, did you base your idea, base what you were doing off of his tracks that he had already recorded? Was it a clean slate? Talk a little bit about that whole, that time period for you, because I mean, it's got to be tough, taking a gig, but also, kind of having to go in and do that,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I was nervous as hell going into that because that's not something I was used to. I'm playing in Testament all the time, and my band members, Chuck and Alex, do the big side project Metal Allegiance with Dave. And besides them knowing each other personally and being around each other, Megadeth and Testament have a long history of doing stuff together. But in the case of me, I was just never there for those. It's just the way the timing went. I wasn't playing bass in Testament when they were touring with Megadeth, and I'm not participating in the Metal Allegiance and stuff. So yeah, I was quite aware of Dave Ellefson's playing. I remember riding my 10-speed home from high school, listening to the first Megadeth album, and thinking like, hey, I'm a super underground metal fan for sure. I mean, we all listen to Slayer and Anvil and Accept and Merciful Fate and all this stuff, and it was good music. But as a bass player, as a music nerd, I also had to kind of put to the side that, well, there's not a whole lot of interesting bass playing going on. But the first Megadeth album had some fucking killer bass playing on it, and that's when I learned about this guy. And so I was always aware and always had respect for this as a player, because in this new music style that's developing as the underground is coming out of clubs and it's becoming more and more of a thing, the inspiration for great bass lines was pretty slim pickings. And so everyone knew that Megadeth had the riffs and Megadeth had this bass player. And that, we all, Cliff Burton was the best performing bass player we all saw, but you had to go to the show to experience Cliff, because unless you had this advanced stereo system at home, you're not really going to hear him on the album very well. And so that's the young me. And then you come to 2021, and we were all following the news of what was going on in the Megadeth camp. Especially, I was getting personal updates because I've been friends with Dirk, the drummer, for years. We met when we were very young, and we have been doing different projects together. And the conversations would just start like, "Oh wow, what a major setback!" This is, everyone knew what happened when it hit the internet and Ellefson's departure and everything. And so it was just a curiosity happening in a major band. And then, of course, like I said, I had an inside connection with Dirk and just simple conversation and just curious what's going to happen. But Dave was out of Megadeth completely when I got the call. So as much pressure as I put on myself to come into that, it wasn't a replacement thing. It wasn't like Scudo or I'm in. They were absent. They were absent a bass player. And talking to Mustaine on the phone, of course he was obviously looking for a replacement, but he just basically told me like, look, we've fallen behind, been working on this record for a long time, as you know, Dave. And he goes, we need to get it done. And he goes, I got really angry at my buddy, and his tracks kind of went away, and we need to get this done. And you have a reputation of flying in and doing this kind of thing. And obviously with Dirk there opening the door to put my name in, obviously helped a lot. And yeah, I think I put more pressure on myself than Mustaine did. He was well accommodating to me and helping me get through the process. And also the recording engineer, what a sweet human being. If I'm talking about Rakestraw.
Yeah, Rakestraw.
Yeah. And we did reference the original bass track if we needed to. And Mustaine wanted me to, listen to it and absorb it and see what I would do as a musician. But, I'm not so naive that I think I'm going to come in and reinvent Megadeth bass playing. I knew,
Right.
I knew what it called for, and having massive respect for the player that was there. It was, of course, an obligation for me to make sure that, even being this more of an organic kind of wild weed player, not somebody who sticks to things, that I kind of made sure I reminded myself every morning, okay, I'm in the Megadeth arena now. And yeah, and then when there was some moments, I think Mustaine was living with the songs for a while, and he would just say, hey, I hear possibility, something different here. And I wasn't allowed to hear anything except for just stripped down rhythm tracks. And he would say, let's try this. But for the most part, the bass had already been recorded, and nobody was willing to, get experimental. It was job to get it done. And yeah, I had these kind of rough studio tracks that were, like the guideline, the blueprint, and I could hear Dave's playing in there, and I said, oh, okay, I see what he did here. So I would do, my diligence to keep everybody familiar with what was there in the song. So for the most part, yeah, there was a guide available, but there was a little variety of try this, try that, and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was a huge thing for me coming from my background, playing in the underground and playing, this extreme, behind the times thing, coming up and playing in this big arena. And like I said, I was very, very nervous to do it, and I wanted to make sure that I proved that I was the good choice. That was what was the really cool thing when we were on tour a couple of years ago, when Testament was on tour with Voivod. We had picked up Dave's band for a few shows. I forget which one it was. Dave, was at the
Diet. Yeah. So just so everybody knows, me and Steve have already had this conversation, so this isn't like news to me here. We when our record came out 2 years ago, we did a couple shows with Testament, and yeah, you were cool enough. You said, hey Dave, come here, and we sat in the production office and had a chat. We just kind of you in fact, you came forward to me to said, hey, I just want to clear the air and make sure there's no problems between you and me. And look, bass players were pretty chill about this, but I appreciate you doing that. That was very cool of you to sort of get ahead of that and not let there be any sort of, elephant in the room, Ellefson in the room, as Josh calls it. But, yeah, hey, so think about it. One day maybe there's a Megadeth release with both of us on there, so you'll be in
two. It'd be like a Quadvium thing. You do it like Quadvium, just play them together.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Mustaine would be the first one to sign up for that project, wouldn't he?
Oh yeah, he'll be all over that. Well, yeah, so it is what it is. Yeah, so awesome. Look, so it goes, and look, this is a business, it's a profession, personalities are what they are, and life moves on, and so it is. So that was a brutal record. I'm glad to be away from it, to be honest with you. It was a terrible process. It was 5 years in the making. Every song I wrote for it got taken off. Every riff I added, every lyric I added, it was spiteful, it was vengeful, and it was hateful. And it was not my record. I went into it. I said to Dave, why don't we go in here? We're at a phase now. We should go in here like it's P-Cells. We have no money. We have no time. Write a song, record it, move on. Write a song, record it, move on. I said, I feel like fans are tired of these over-digitized, fucking locked to the grid, these perfect heavy metal records, man. Fans want fucking records, I think, that are more organic. It sounds like a band playing in the room together. I mean, then this 40th anniversary Euthanasia came up, and I go back to that. Sean Drover got me into that record again. And I hadn't listened to it in a lot of years, and I listened to it and I go, fuck, we were good, man. That's us playing together in the room, all four of us, laying down tracks together. And I miss that. And, Dieth, we didn't play everything together, but it has that sound to it, When we do Kings of Thrash, we get in the room and we fucking play, and it sounds great. Everybody plays good. Our singer's spot on. And it brings me back to an era of Megadeth when everything wasn't on click tracks, it wasn't so produced, and it was just and those songs from that era are that, you know what I mean? They were meant to be played in smaller venues because that's what the band was at that time. So, you know, things change, but you know, there was clashes all the way down. And, you know, and for me, it started in 2018 when Dave came in to we started a tour in Oslo, and he came in and he said he wanted to re-record the No Life Till Leather demo. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is where we're at after all this time. We're supposed to be writing a new album and new songs, and I was just like, I am not down with that. As fun as it would be to play those songs, because that's one of my favorite Metallica recordings, I was just like, yeah, I ain't down with that, you know. I'm sorry, I couldn't kiss the ring for that one. I was like, I'm out. And so I think our problem started then, you know what I mean? So as we went into the record, he knew I wasn't willing to just fucking say yes, Dave, and go along with shit. So eventually I'm out of the band. You know what I mean? So it goes, right? Bands are what bands are, and you know, so it is what it is, you know. So it's sadly I have not listened to the record. You know, I heard the one video, so it's probably one of your performances I won't be listening to, just because you know the record brings up bad feelings for me. Just and not being thrown out of the band, but just everything about that record.
No, it's very understandable, and
it was sick, dying, and dead. When I was out, I'm like, fucking, it's dead. I'm out. You know what I mean?
It's dead, and I'm gone. No, that's very understandable. That's a very human reaction. You know, I mean, that's you know Mustaine better than anybody. I would say.
Anybody, yeah. I've been there longer, and probably unless it's his sisters. And maybe a couple friends from Huntington Beach or James and Lars. I mean, I literally know that guy longer than pretty much.
Yeah, and I spent a total of 13 days in that country house there off the side of his property, and that was it. That's my entire history with Mustaine. So, very, very different outlooks on that. But
well, you were the new guy. The new guy's always the best guy. You know what I mean? So
Steve, what's funny for me is you said that Dave was accommodating to you and like allowing you to write some stuff, and everything that Ellefson's ever said, it's just like, no, it's got to be like this. It's got to be like this. You know, he was being cool with you with the record.
And in all fairness, and not to interrupt you, Steve, in all fairness, when I came back to the band, we did the 13 record, dude, I played all those tracks in 3 days. It was great. I brought Johnny K in because Andy Sneap wasn't available. It was great. You know, the Super Collider record was a fucking nightmare. It was not fun. Then what did we do? Dystopia, you know, I flew in. Dave had written everything and actually had all the tracks down. And me and Dave sat down and I recorded bass to the click track. I had no drums. I had no backing tracks. Dave would show me the parts. I'd make my charts. You know, Dystopia was me and Dave, real brotherhood, super great hang. You know, he really got into producing more just because no one could produce him. He kind of had to learn how to do it because how he wanted to make a record, no one could kind of get their mind around it. So he stepped up. So Dystopia was a super great experience together with Dave. You know what I mean? So it just look, you know,
comes and goes. Yeah,
throw a dart. You know what I mean? And that was one where it was like, not so much on the last one. So you know, that's
but. You know. It wasn't so much to address your question. It wasn't so much allowing me to write things. There was we're way beyond pre-production phase, as you know. Dave remembers they were, you know, Kiko's solos were all over the place. Dave was finishing up tiny little vocal things. It was way, way, way late in the game. So no, it wasn't like I was writing new stuff, but there was areas of just possibilities for personal interpretation, little flexibility, I would say. But Megadeth is Megadeth, and the bass is, you follow Mustaine and you lock in with that kick and snare, and it's a metal to the metal record. And that's what I said. I didn't go in there with any preconceived notions that I was gonna, you know, reinvent anything. I knew I was going into a Megadeth place, and I had to, you know, follow the rules. But like I said, I knew that there wasn't any overlap or any contact or any kind of weird thing between me and Ellefson, because there was a time period from when he left till they gave me the call to come and do it. So, you know, I didn't feel that there should be anything personal, but I knew being in a band, being in Testament, and having my band members, friends with this guy, that I needed to make that connection. And I grabbed him. Everybody had stopped sound checking for the day and went to lunch. And I said, "Hey, sit down. Let's give me your thoughts. Here's the guy right here. I came in and I pooped in your toilet, so let's talk about it." And that part of our conversation went very quickly by. And that was special to me that day, to talk to Ellefson, because I saw what an incredibly positive person, and just like you said, like the bass player community, I mean, we're more of a support group for each other, for what we go through in our band. And that was super evident that day. And the conversation about that album, like I said, it was addressed, and it was absolutely the non-issue. And we started talking about a lot of other things, and I got out of it that that you're a very humble and super positive, move forward kind of guy. And that was inspiring, because I went in there as the guy who replaced your bass on a Megadeth record, but I came out of there remembering that I'm that kid riding that 10-speed Hope, listening to this, one of the cooler bass players of the early underground time, thinking like, wow, this is cool. So that I felt the big brother, little brother syndrome in that case, and it was awesome. And yeah, it was cool.
It's really cool. I just sent Bob Daisley an email today, because I became friends with him, and I just got off the Black Sabbath thing. Same thing. I said, I don't think I played any of your songs at the gig, but just so you know, me and Frank Bello and all of us of our age group, we fucking missed you. You know what I mean? Because you were the guy, right? You were the guy. And a lot of those people, hired, fired, in and out. And Bob probably being one of the more famous, legends of that camp for that kind of stuff. And I'm glad to have gotten friends with him, just like how Steve, you and I become friends, and look, it's the way it goes, right? It's what it is. And, so there you go, Josh. You got to ask your question.
Friends. It's
now
not
Josh knows. It's not show friends, it's show business, So.
That's right, Josh. It's a little more incestuous than you think. Band business is band business, and we don't want to touch that. We're bass players. We got our own community, and we don't let the stress interfere with friendship.
That's one thing, being a fan of Megadeth and being a fan of David, but also being a fan of you, Steve. It's like when he got kicked out, I was somewhat on the inside, on a different side of it, kind of hoping that he didn't get let go. Then when I hear Steve DiGiorgio is doing the record, I'm like, wonder what that's going to sound like. It was intriguing to see what you were going to do with the record. So kind of it was cool for, I guess, on the fan side, to just kind of check out what you would do on a Megadeth record. How about that?
Yeah, it was Steve being Ellefson for a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Like I said, I'm not going to go in there and I'm not going to put philosopher licks on top of Dirk's playing. I mean, Mr. Mustaine, he was. I snuck a little bit of fretless on there.
Nice.
There's some kind of instrumental interludes, some stuff where we gave it a shot. We plugged it in and tried it, and you see his brow furrow and his lips purse, that famous Mustaine look, like, yeah, I like it. So, Rick Shaw would give me the thumbs up, like, cool, man, cool. So it's those type of things that were the flexible things. But no, I definitely didn't go in there and recreate anything or do anything special. I just got done, I was playing a cover album, and Ellefson had laid the groundwork. Yeah.
Yeah, Rune, there's still room for you to play in a Megadeth album now. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
We're all playing on Megadeth. Yeah.
You can steal your fretless, though.
You're next, Rune. You're next. Let's go. Get ready.
And then Josh after that. Well, brothers,
we'll just all go on tour as a mega bass,
Exactly. Guys, thanks so much for joining us here.
Yeah,
this is really great. And I love Quadbium. I think it's so cool. And
me too.
I've got my eye on us doing something together, a show. Maybe we all go to Amsterdam and we play gig somewhere. Our friend Paulo from Sepultura owns the Duo Bar. So, I think, I'm talking about another Bass Warrior tour next year in March, so I'm thinking about who can we I want to do different things. I want to add people and do events. And, I like this thing where, brothers play together, So anyway, there's all in my mind. I'm already a year down the road thinking, all right, we got some shit we can put together here. So maybe that's
Thank you
something
so
we can
much.
do, so.
Thank
Yeah.
you, so
Thank you.
Dave.
You're welcome. Yeah,
Really
my
appreciate-
door's open, and let's make it happen, man. I think it'd be great. So, all right. Well,
Yeah.
listen, best of luck with everything, and and we'll.
No, thanks for having us. We really appreciate the attention and the support, for this new strange project of ours. And, what better representative in the bass world than yourself? And obviously nice to see you again. So
likewise, yeah.
From this bass player duo and from the new band that we made, really, really appreciate the attention and, and spreading the word of this new thing. You know how the promo phase for new stuff goes.
Oh yeah.
And so definitely, thank you, sir. And I hope to see you soon. I might come hang out another Metal Allegiance song. I kick maybe Jack Gibson out of the way or something, and then me and you can
come on in. Yeah. I mean, we've had 2 or 3 bass players up there at a time, and it's quite the racket, but somehow it works, So orchestrating bass player parts in a heavy metal setting, So
well,
much fun.
Me and Jeroen took on that in our way, so
sure did.
Yeah. The door's open. Let's do like you said, a big bass storm. Let's give the crowd more low end than they've ever had.
I like it. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll be in touch. Yeah.
Thank you.
Guys. See ya.
All right. Take care, guys.